In this video, we're going to create a nice line that will overlap on top of a bar chart, and this is an array value. So we have the array value inserted in our data set, and then we create this beautiful line here. So let's start to look how we can create this. So let's start to look how to draw the line in a bar chart based on array values in Chartjs. So the first thing what we need is we need to get our boiler template, which you can find here which you can find here on chartjs3.com, getting started. This specific link, which you can find as well in the description box. Copy this chunk of code. If you want to understand this code, please watch this video here that explains it all. Paste that in there, cut the title out, I'll put it in here, and maximize the size of the chart. Let's make this 80%, save, refresh, there we are. So now what I want to do is I want to create a line that goes basically to multiple points, but is based on an array. So how do we do this? Well, we could do, for example, here I would say comma, and I'm going to say here trend lines or trend line. Let's make it like that. And then here I'm going to put in a value, and it could be anything. So let's say 18, 6, number 3, null, and 9, 3, 1, and 9 again. So let's start to look. And basically this null, what will happen here, basically this will be not really considered as a value to draw. So it will just continue on, and you will notice that later on nicely. So now what I'm going to do here is in the options, or after the options, comma, plugins, and then I'm going to say here let's say the trend lines, or trend line as well. I'm going to use that one as a plugin as well. So I say constant trend line equals this ID, the trend line, and I'm going to say after data sets draw. Why? Because I want to draw first the bar chart, and then afterwards I'm going to draw the lines on top of that. So we overlap the bars with our line chart. This is very important. So I have chart, arcs, and plugin options. Then what I want to here, of course, curly braces, and then in here I'm going to do an object destructuring. If you don't know what's an object destructuring, I'm going to recommend you a video in the description box, understanding Chartjs object destructuring. Very important. I will not explain it here. So then I'm going to say here CTX. I want to have here probably the chart area. And then I'm going to say here the top, bottom, left. Make sure you have the comma correctly, left, comma, right, comma, width, comma, height. We might not use them all, but I just put them all in there so we have them ready just in case. Next, put a comma. I'm going to say scales, and I'm going to say here I want the X and Y. And finally, I just put that one in front of here. I will say here the data, because I'm missing that one, and this one becomes important, so we can grab this trend line array here. So now what we want to do is we want to start drawing the item. And how do we do this? First of all, I'm going to say ctx.save to save all variables above, and having our default canvas like this ready. Next, I'm going to say ctx.begin path to ensure that no element bleeds to other elements or other shapes of the chart. That's very important. So we're going to create our own unique shape starting from now. So I'm going to say ctx dot, and I'm going to say line width, and this line width here, well, let's say here a 3 pixel thickness for the line, and then I want to have maybe a color, so I also ctx dot stroke style equals, let's make this gray with the British word of gray with A for alpha. Next, what I want to do is start to draw. So what I'm going to do now is I want to draw based on whatever we have here above. So first of all, how do we draw something on the line? Well, first of all, we're going to say then ctx.move to, and this command consists of an X and Y value, and the move to is basically the pencil. You can imagine like a pencil on a piece of paper. Where is our starting point? And let's say our pencil will be, well, this is 18, so the starting point should be here at the very top, this corner top. So that's our first position. Well, to do this, let's start to play around a little bit on our X value. So we have the X value, and the X value can be based on this left line here. So I'm going to say left because we have this chart area. If you don't understand chart area, there is a video about understanding chart area in Chartjs. So this is the left one. So what about the y? Well, the y is slightly different. We need to get basically the value of our scale of number 18 and convert that number 18 into a pixel coordinate of x and y. Chartjs has a built-in functionality. We're going to say this y dot, and the reason I'm allowed to use the y dot is because of the scales here. We have the object x and y, so these give us the x's. So I'm using here the y, and then we say dot, and I'm going to use a function built into Chartjs. We say get the pixel for value, and the value is in this case number 18. I'm going to hard code it, and afterwards we're going to soft code that one. So we have this. So once we did that, we did nothing, or we didn't draw anything at all. All we have defined is a starting point, which would be at the very left and in position 18 on the y scale. That's it. So what I want to do now is to start to draw another one, or basically I'm going to say here ctx at line 2, and then here this is not even drawing a line, but it's the intention to draw from one point to another. So let's draw just the other side here. For example, I want to hit number 9 on the right side here. So I'm going to say here right, comma, and then we're just going to grab this again, copy this, change the value to number 9. So we'll go diagonal down, basically from this point going diagonally down to this point here, number 9 on the y scale. Then enter, and then I'm going to say ctx dot stroke to draw the line. If I save this, refresh, you can see here we have this line working, but of course this is hard coded. What I want to do, I want to soft code it. I want to soft code this and bounce the line up and down based on this item here. So how do we get there? Well, remember we have this data object here in our object destructuring, and if we do now here a console log, just explore. How do we get this? So we say here data, and this data is basically this item here. Then we have to just go to datasets, and then we can go here to the trend line. But if I save this and do console log, you should be able to find the same path. So I'm going to click here on the object. See, we are immediately in the data, and then you can see here we have the data sets, index 0, that's the one I want, and then we see here trend line. And we're allowed to create our own objects here because this is just plain JavaScript. Chartjs is JavaScript basically. It's built in JavaScript. So that's why. So we can grab this one here. How do we get this? And I see here we have 8 array values. I guess we can reduce one of them. But we have here the data sets, index 0, and then trend line. So if I say here dot data sets and then index 0 dot trend line, and if I save that and refresh, we get this here. So what I want to do is just remove one of these values here. We have the excess value, which should be number 9 at the end. That's the one we wanted. So we have this here. So what I want to do now is to loop through all of these values, so we eventually have the final value going here. So how do we do this? Well, basically what we need to do here is create a so-called a for each loop based on this here. Because right now we can do this one. If I just say here index 0, save, still same. If I do this one as well, index, and this is hard coded, basically number 6, it's still same because it's also 9. And if I make this, let's say number 10, save, you should see that this jumps up a bit. Alright, so all of this is confirmed. So now let's start to make a loop and make for each loop. So how do we do this? The for each loop will not start with the starting point here where we have the move tool, because that's the starting point. So we can hard code this one. So that's the easiest one to do, because what we could do here is just say here hard code this index 0. That is no problem because we always have to work with index 0 as the starting point. We have the left here, but then here this part could be done with a nice formula. So what we're going to do here is now is get a trend line array dot for each, and I'm going to create here a callback functionality. We're going to say here every trend line data is a data point, comma index. So I want these two variables as a shorthand, and then what I can do is I can cut out this, put that in there. But now we have the index here. We can just copy this. If I put this index here, we could say here index maybe +1. It's up to you if you want that. If you don't want to have like the starting point here and here, because you will see that kinda that's the only thing that you will notice. But this one here, what we need to do here is we need to change that. We're going to change that by saying x value there. And what we want to do here, I guess we could do this on index, and there is a data point, which is just anyway these values. So instead of index here, we can just say you get value, remove all of this, and just put in the data point in itself. It will understand this. So if I save this, refresh, you can see here this works, but we have here the straight line. We could remove this by removing the move tool and then starting at 1. But I would just leave it because I like to start at the beginning. And then we have this straight line here. So what I want to do here then is the same. We have here the final one, and then we continue on to the very end. So what I'm going to do here, last one, copy this. I'm going to put this in here, and then all I'm going to say here, because this one is basically the last value of the array. So what I'm going to do here, we have this. Let's say here array.length -1. To get the last point, and then here let's see, so what we need here is then basically this one is fine, and then here only the data point, and this data point is this value. But what I want to is I want to get the index number of our trend line here. How do we do that? Well, we're going to grab this, put it in here, make this an array. And then what I'm going to say here is basically the same here. Maybe we should have a special command for that, but that's alright. So I'm going to say here dot length again -1, and let's see if this really works, because this code is a slight mess, to be honest. Let's save that, refresh. Alright, interesting. Of course. So why it doesn't work? Because we're drawing exactly on the same position here, and that's not what I want. What I want to do here was to go to the very right. And then line 2, hold on, we get all of this. Alright, so we see here there's a lot of excess code, this to the right, because all I want to do was from this point go to the very end. There we are, and that's basically it. So if I change my values here, 9, 9, 6 for example, and maybe this one here 4, and I say here null, and again here null, so you can see the differences. Save, refresh. You can see because of the null it will give a calculated estimate where it's supposed to be, because this is 9 and here down is, what is this value, number 4. So it will assume that from this point to this point it's just a diagonal line going towards there. But this works perfect, and you can see here this works. This is the straight line here, and everything is nicely matched. So if you enjoyed this video where you can create these nice lines, another video I'm going to recommend is another option is this video here on how to add custom annotation lines on hover in Chartjs, where we create these hover effects here with these annotation lines only when we hover over a data point. So that's another way of presenting your data more nicer.